Shalom Chaverim. I'm here to share a little bit from this week's Parasha. In this week, we are in Parashat Tetze, which is when you go out. Parashat Tetze is from Deuteronomy chapter 21 verse 10 up to Deuteronomy chapter 25 verse 19. Right now, as we are in this Parasha, Chaverim, we are in the month of Elul. And the one thing about the month of Elul is that it is a month where we are engaged in a lot of self-evaluation. It is a time when we take stock of our lives. It is a time when we take inventory of the way that we live our lives before Adonai. What good things am I doing? These are the things that I need to ask myself. What bad things am I doing? On the good things, is there any that I might improve? What about on the bad things? Surely I need to start doing good things in my life. In which areas do I need to improve? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? All these things we look at during the month of Elul. So, don't let the month of Elul pass you by without you having made some very impactful improvements in your life, so that after that you will impact the kingdom of life in a better way. Even as we prepare to go to the high holiday season, after which is concluded by the Simchat Torah, you know, we want to start our lives at a better level, so that we start, you know, that our lives are becoming better and better before Adonai each and every time. So one very important aspect of self-evaluation is prioritizing. Out of all these areas that I need to improve, on which areas do I need to improve? On which of the areas that I need to improve, which one of them are most important in terms of me now impacting the kingdom of God? Which ones of them are most urgent in terms of me impacting the kingdom of God? And then I need now to strike a balance between the most important and the most urgent, so that I will know exactly which areas are more important. In this week's parasha, which I'm going to go into just now, I'm going to read from Deuteronomy chapter 25, where we find that the children of Israel were urged not to use dishonest scales, you know, in terms of weights and measures, the scales, not to use dishonest scales, but instead to remember what Amalek did to them as they came out of Egypt. So I'm going to read from Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 15 up to 21. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 15 up to 21. In fact, I will start on verse 13. Verse 13 in Hebrew, Lo yihye licha bekischa even va'even gedola veketana, which means you are not to have stones of different weights in your bag, large and small. Verse 14, you are not to have in your house ephahs of different measures, large and small. Verse 15, you must have a full and honest weight and full and honest measure, so that your days may be long on the land that Adonai your God is giving you. For all who do these things, all who do injustice, are detestable to Adonai. Verse 17, remember what Amalek did to you along the way as you came out of Egypt, how he happened upon you along the way and attacked those among you in the rear, all the stragglers behind you, when you were tired and weary. He did not fear God. Now when Adonai your God grants you rest from all the enemies surrounding you in the land Adonai your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess, you are to blot out the memory of Amalek from under the heavens. Do not forget. Now, I've just read about not using dishonest scales, and immediately after read about remembering Amalek. Who is Amalek? Amalek was a people, and these people were the very first people to fight the children of Israel after they had left Egypt. The Amalek people tried to stop the Israelites from going to Mount Sinai. In other words, they tried to stop them from going to the place where they were going to receive the Torah. Now God says to remember and not forget Amalek. And also God says to eliminate Amalek. A question now the Torah often asks, the Torah commentaries, they often ask, but why is this set of verses following each other? Because normally in the Torah, nothing just happens out of nowhere. There's always a purpose whenever something appears in the Torah. So why is this set of verses following each other? I'm going to read from Rashi's commentary. I'll read that from my mobile phone. According to Rashi, if a people use dishonest scales, this thing is so detestable to God that the punishment can be severe enough to cause a repeat of the Amalek scenario. That a non-God-fearing enemy of that same magnitude can come and fight you when you are tired and weary. So this is exactly how Rashi puts it. You shall remember what Amalek did to you. The juxtaposition of these passages teaches us that if you use fraudulent measures and weights, you could be worried about provocation from the enemy. As the verse states, deceitful scales are an abomination to God. After which, the next verse continues, when willful wickedness comes, then comes disgrace. So friend, in your life, even as you self-evaluate, even as you take stock, are you using honest scales? Or are you underrating your weaknesses with excuses? Are you being objective even when you tell yourself that I need to improve on this weakness? Do you properly identify your weaknesses? The sins that you are most weak in terms of resisting. We need to be able to be honest, to be objective, and remove all forms of excuses from our lives so that we can really look at this in an objective way and come to a point where if I make a decision to improve a certain aspect of my life during this month of Elul, by the time that everything is over, I must be an improved person. I must be able to move from one level of glory to the next in terms of how I live before Adonai. But, you know, I'm just wondering one thing here. If we use dishonest scales, we need to be worried that the Amalek scenario might return into our lives. And the Amalek scenario is a very severe scenario because they were attacked when they were at the point of their weariness and their weakness. Why such a drastic punishment? You find that each person who uses dishonest scales, he will have two sets of scales in his shop, right? He will have the dishonest scale for his normal day-to-day sales, and then he will have an honest scale, right? So you find that the dishonest scale is detestable to God. It is an abomination to him, the dishonest scale. But then also, the honest scale is also an abomination to God. Why? Because it is not being used in the proper way. Okay, if he's using the dishonest scales to make more money by selling less to people, why do you think he would have an honest scale in his shop? The reason for the honest scale is only to be used when the law enforcement agents come to carry out audits at the shop. Now, you find that the purpose for which the honest scale is there is to present falsehood as if it was truth. Now, this God cannot stand. Let me also look at another example. Let's say you are a farmer, and let's say you have got packaging that says 1 kg printed on the packaging, and in there you put tomatoes. But each time you pack your tomatoes, you make sure that you remove, when you weigh the 1 kg, 1 kilogram, before you seal it, you remove 1 tomato from it. That is a dishonest scale. God will not stand that. So we are supposed to apply honest scales in our lives. Now this applies to business people, but then where does it apply in my life? Where does it apply in your life? This applies in our lives, especially in this month of Elul, when we take stock of our lives. What is important in your life as you take stock of your life? That is very important. What is important? You need to set the parameters right. And what are your priorities? Which areas of your life do you prioritize more? Do you prioritize your material things, or do you prioritize your spiritual things? You know, sometimes when a person prioritizes their material things, they are able sometimes to undervalue or to underrate the areas where they go wrong, especially when they are making a bit of profit along the way. But we need to realize that in the spiritual realm, this falsehood will have registered. Do you value the material or do you value the spiritual? This question, I can ask it in another way. Do you value the temporary or do you value the things that last forever? Because the material things are temporary, Chaverim, but the spiritual things last forever. Those spiritual things have got a weight that is everlasting. The emphasis that you apply in your thinking will change. Even the way that you approach your thinking will change. Even the way that you approach your life. So we are supposed to think spiritual more than material, because spiritual is what builds. Everything that happens in your life comes from a spiritual realm. Before you see it in your eyes, it has already existed. So even at this time when we are taking stock of all our lives, we need to really take a very solid inventory. An inventory that is going to be objective. An inventory that is going to lead me and you to objectivity and to a proper improvement in our lives. What good things are you doing in your life, my friend? And what are the bad things that are still conquering you in life? We really need to come to a point where we establish our weaknesses, where we address our weaknesses. And the first thing is to identify the weakness, and after identifying the weakness, never rely on yourself to remove a weakness from your life. The very same God who is our Father, the very same God who is the eternal judge, He is our Father. Right now, as we live in this time, we are able to say to God, God, I've got a weakness in this area. Please help me to conquer this weakness. Chaverim, do not let the month of Elul pass you by without you having objectively found a weakness in your life or an area of sin in your life and found a way of addressing it. And the first port of call is to ask God to help you in your weakness. Call Tuv.